Hello, I'm Dr. Jodie Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. If you're a parent or a carer, you've no doubt had to wrangle one or more of your kids to school from time to time. And believe me when I tell you, I know how frustrating it can be and how it can make school mornings feel so stressful. But when it's occasional, we tend to work our way through and we manage. But for some children, the idea of going to school creates so much anxiety and distress that they simply cannot go. They dig their heels in and they flat out refuse, and there's very little that we as their parents can do to convince them otherwise. And that's why it's called school refusal, but other people will call it school phobia, and sometimes it's simply called school can't. It's a very distressing and complex challenge, and it's something that we've been through as a family actually, but at the moment it is affecting tens of thousands of families and schools here in Australia and overseas. And a lot of it has been attributed to the pandemic, but there is much more to it. And what we understand about it is that it is incredibly hard for the child who, in essence, feels they simply can't cope at school. And many of them find the thought of going to school absolutely unbearable. As a parent, in addition to the stress and the anxiety that it causes for us, it can be so hard to know what to do. If this is something that's affecting your family right now, I really want you to know first that it is a really difficult challenge for a family. Not only you as a parent, the child that's refusing to go to school, but also siblings and grandparents and other people who might be called on to step in and help if you've got to go to work, or if you're trying to juggle everything and getting other kids to school, or if you've got little ones at home that need your time and attention as well. I want you to know that you're not alone, that there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of families just like yours around the country who are going through similar struggles. And one of the things I'd really like for you to show to yourself is a whole lot of compassion. And compassion for ourselves often requires us to think about the way we treat ourselves as the way that we would treat a friend. So don't be hard on yourself. It's not something that is an easy solve, that is an easy fix. And when you can have some real kindness for yourselves and just this acceptance that, yes, what you're going through is really difficult, it can make getting through each day just that little bit easier. So it's really important, in fact, equally important for you to look after yourself as much as you are supporting your child who is not willing to go to school yet. I love that word yet. I really think when it comes to anxiety, and anxiety underpins school refusal, that we can use that word yet, which gives us this real sense of hope and confidence that there will be change. And one of the things that I really want to kind of emphasize here, that anxiety is usually at the heart of school refusal. When a situation feels threatening, our brain will sound the alarm. And I've talked before about this, that sometimes we can replace the word anxiety with the word alarm, that sometimes for kids, thinking about it as the alarm in their brain sounding can be a new and different way for them to think about it. And when that alarm does sound, it's really instinctive for us, for our kids, to retreat to a place and a feeling of safety. And if for any reason school is not a safe place for them, whether or not that's physically or whether or not that's psychologically, then home is going to be the place that they're going to want to stay. There are so many reasons going to school, or even the thought of going to school, can make kids feel anxious. And it's complex and it can be hard to kind of tease out exactly what's beneath it all. And sometimes you'll know, sometimes there'll be an incident and you'll be reasonably clear that that is the cause, because school refusal can begin seemingly overnight. Sometimes if it's teenagers, they don't always want to talk to us, but other times it will come on quite gradually. And so we really need to stay aware, because the earlier we can catch it, the better, and the more easily we're able to do something about it. Situations or circumstances like troubles in the home, particularly with the parents' relationship, separation or divorce, can be so unsettling for a child, and that can produce this unwillingness to kind of want to separate from mum and dad, or from mum or dad, and this unwillingness to want to go to school because of the uncertainty in the home environment, a death in the family, or an illness for the child where they start to miss some school because they're not well, and then this challenge of getting back starts to present, and what was initially a reason to miss school that was well understood can become sort of tangled with this idea that it's really hard to get back. It can also be really hard sometimes to tease out, is this tummy ache part of the physical illness, or is this anxiety that's showing up? Because we know anxiety presents with so many physical symptoms. Some of the other things that can contribute to school can't or school refusal are difficulties with schoolwork, and this idea that kids feel like, I'm not keeping up, I'm really struggling, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to do what's needed of me, or there's work that's overdue, and the whole situation just feels so overwhelming. They just feel as though going to school is just going to be too challenging, and staying home is a much more comfortable option. Other things that won't come as any surprise that can contribute to this kind of challenge is bullying. If a child doesn't feel connected at school, or if they just feel like they're not really part of school, they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel like a part of a close friendship circle, the loneliness, or perhaps troubles in their friendship circle, which, gosh, I'm a parent of a 13-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy, and I tell you, these are inevitable things that come up. And when we understand, when our kids talk to us, we can help talk them through and listen and really validate how hard it is for them. We can maybe share some advice if they're open to that. But when it comes to these challenges, it can be hard, as I said before, to tease out exactly what's happening. But there are some things that we can do that can make a really big difference. And in light of what I was just saying about some of the causes, these can point to some of the steps that we can take to make a really meaningful difference. And that's increasing a sense of belonging at school where we can. And there's only so much that we have control over. And it's so hard as parents, isn't it? Because sometimes our kids are experiencing challenges that we simply cannot do anything about. We just need to be there to support them, to validate how they feel, and to be there to make suggestions if that's what they're looking for and that's what they want and that's what they're open to, which they're not always. One of my kids said to me, "Mum, I really just want to know that you're there to hear what's happening. I want you to know that I can handle it." And I find that hard, as we all do, because we don't like to see our kids suffering and we want to try to solve these problems. But what I said in response to that was, absolutely, I understand. I'm really glad that you could say that. And I just want you to know that I'm here. If you need some extra help, you just need to ask. One of the things that we can do for our children, which can really help with their comfortability at school, is to help them to strengthen their friendships. So this can actually go a long way to increasing their feelings of psychological safety at school and developing in them more willingness to get back into a routine of daily attendance. And in an earlier episode, it was Dr. John Forsyth who talked about the W word, the willingness. And when there's something fun at school, there's that sense of connection. They feel that they've got somebody to lean on, to talk to hang out with, that makes school more enjoyable, then that can really go a long way to increasing their willingness to go. Something else I'd really encourage you to talk to your children about is how anxiety can feel so physical, and those feelings, when they're not well understood, can feel so overwhelming that a child just wants to do anything they can to stop those feelings. When they understand how anxiety shows physically and they understand that every symptom has a reason for being there, then it can take some of that uncertainty and some of that fear around the physical feelings that come with anxiety and help them to feel more comfortable when anxiety shows up and less are likely to feel like they have to kind of run away from anything that kind of brings on this anxious discomfort that is so hard to tolerate when you just don't understand what's happening in your body. So getting back to what I was saying about what can we do that's practical, that can actually help, and that's equipping our kids with friendship skills and creating opportunities for more connection. These are some of the things that we can have control over. And friendship skills, when we think about the nuances of facial expressions and body language, it takes a while to develop. And some children pick up on these things more than others. And what we know is that screens in our kids' lives, at school and outside of school, can remove some of those opportunities for those skills to develop, but they are absolutely things that we can teach and we can create more opportunities for. One of the ways we can boost our kids' conversation skills is by having more conversation, but by also teaching them some of the things that make a conversation work and that help to strengthen a friendship. These are things like making eye contact and listening. And I've sometimes listened to one of my children's conversations, and it feels like the girls, when they're talking to one another, they're almost having separate conversations and then just sharing with each other. And so every now and again, if I notice that, what I'll do afterwards, I'll say, hey, I noticed this. Just remember that as a friend, it's really nice to listen and to ask a question or to make a comment on what your friend has said before you go to sharing a little bit more about yourself. And that's one of the things that we can do, particularly if kids feel socially anxious, is to build their confidence and help them to understand that we can strengthen friendships through trading information. And that can be by asking a question and then by sharing a little bit about themselves as well. Taking it in turns, and these are all things that you can do through role play and through obviously conversations yourself as a parent with your child. We can also create opportunities for our kids to connect with school friends after school, on weekends, and also at a time when holidays are approaching. I think it's really important for kids to stay connected. What that does is it helps them to feel more comfortable when it comes time to going back to the classroom after a break. You know, when I was teaching many, many years ago, I would feel anxious going back to school after a break. And my anxiety disorder at that time was not identified. I didn't understand that I lived with anxiety. And I could remember in that lead up to going back to school just how anxious I felt, the uncertainty, the trouble with my breathing. I'm feeling a little bit anxious now even. Even thinking about it, I can feel my breathing changing. So I'm just going to take a moment just to breathe in through my nose and lengthen my exhale. And these skills are so important for any of our kids who are experiencing anxiety as well, is to know how to settle their system, know what works for them to help ground themselves when that anxiety is bubbling up. So yeah, getting back to this idea of maintaining that connection over the holidays. And sometimes our kids are connecting with their school friends through their school sports, and there's a break from activities and sports over the holidays as well. And so sometimes what it means is taking that initiative to make arrangements to connect our kids. And a really great way to do that as well is to meet at the school grounds. So shooting some hoops, or kicking the soccer ball around, or going and playing on the monkey bars if it's a primary school, or heading down to the high school for a bit of a walk around the grounds, and maybe even checking out next year's classroom, and just maintaining that familiarity with heading to the school, connecting with friends, and really maintaining these relationships over the school holiday break. Something else that we can do for our kids to strengthen their current friendships and also build new friendships is to look at enrolling our kids in activities or classes over the school holidays, or organising something with some other parents where you might go to the local trampoline park, or you might organise to go down to the beach for a swim one warm afternoon, and to really make sure our kids are regularly connecting with other children with common interests, because this is a really great way to expand their social circle. One of the important reasons that we do this as parents is because when children have different friendship groups, it really helps to support them when things might be going a little bit pear-shaped in one of their social circles. And so even if school friendships are a little bit wobbly, having an activity or a sport or something outside of school where there are other strong friendships can really help to buoy them and to get them through. And it really helps them to feel more confident in themselves and more likely to persevere with the area of life that's challenging when they know that other aspects of their life are going along really well. So these are the types of things that we can facilitate. And it doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to be something that costs an arm and a leg. It can simply be about working out who likes to do what, and then connecting our kids with those like-minded kids and giving them a chance to really expand their social circle in different ways. Something else that we can do, and I know I've done this over the years, again, my kids are teenagers now, but we still talk about it. And I talk about my friendships as well, because friendships change. And one of the things that I've really emphasised to my kids over the years, on and off, you know how as parents we'd kind of drop little seeds every now and again, and we water them every now and again. We don't want to kind of bombard them with ideas, but just plant little seeds that we know we'll come back to in time. One of those seeds that I've planted is this idea that when our kids meet other children, they're not always going to click. They're not always going to want to be best buddies or good friends, or even want to be friends with all of the children that they come across. And so if it's a new school year and it's a new class, I really encouraged my kids when they were in primary school to just take some time to get to know other people, and to remember that in the same way that they're not going to want to become close with everyone in their class or that they meet for the first time, other kids are not necessarily going to want to become close friends with them either. And when you can put it to them from the point of view that it goes both ways, it seems to land differently. And we know as adults, don't we, that there are those people that we really want to spend time with, and we might say to a mum at kinder, hey, do you want to catch up for a coffee? Or one of the mums from a primary school class, or from someone we meet at Ready, Steady, Go, or basketball or netball or painting or drawing, that we have that connection, we want to pursue it, whilst we meet so many other adults where we're friendly, we'll say hello and we'll have a chat, but we're not pursuing that friendship. Helping our kids to see that it's very much the same no matter what age you're at, I think can really help them to see that it goes both ways and it's not necessarily something to take personally. It's just about finding friends who have like interests and like activities and like to do the same things, and it's about finding the right fit. So I think when we can have these kinds of conversations, but also to really validate how painful it is for our kids when they're hurt or feel rejected, when they really want to pursue a friendship with someone and that isn't reciprocated. When it comes to school refusal, it's not always just one thing, and it can be a real combination of factors. And I've shared before on the podcast how our daughter missed a whole lot of school. Now, recording this in 2023, she's in year 7. It started in grade 5 when she started having some really difficult challenges with her gut that caused her to feel sick all the time. And that over time led to headaches, and they were quite unexplained and hard to treat. And it was some time before we kind of got to the bottom of the gut issues. And over time, as she missed more and more school due to illness, it ultimately led to a great difficulty getting her back to school. And I've talked about this biopsychosocial model of health, where in this instance, biologically, she was really struggling with her physical health. And psychologically, that became very stressful because am I going to wake up feeling sick? Am I going to go to school? Am I going to be included in the next birthday party invitation? What am I going to miss out on? And socially, as she missed almost a term at the beginning of grade 6, things started to change. And that pecking order, that hierarchy, that social circle in grade 6 began to change, and it became harder for her when she did get to school to find her place. And as a mum, it became really difficult to kind of tease out, where does the nausea from the illness and from the challenges with her gut stop, and where does the nausea and the sickness that comes with anxiety often, where does that start? And at what point do I sort of pull back and really nurture and comfort? And at what point do I challenge her to get back to school? It was really tough. So I've been there, and it's a complex situation, and it's hard to know what to do. It can be really challenging to know how to move forward. And what we know from the research and also from experience is that once school refusal is established, it can be incredibly difficult to treat. School anxiety can be a precursor to school refusal, and it can bubble up when kids are just starting kinder. I remember those kinder days, and my kids were no different than many other kids, where they were quite clingy and found it really difficult to let go. And we'd say goodbye, and then you'd check in a little bit later, and the teacher would say, they're okay, they've settled in. And it comes as such a relief. But equally, some kids don't settle in. And for some parents, it's really hard to part ways and to be able to find the way to be able to separate and to be able to help that child settle in to that kinder class and to be able to say goodbye and to head out the door. Sometimes it's starting primary school, sometimes it's transitioning to high school. School anxiety can show up when kids are changing schools or going up a level and classes are being mixed around. Knowing just how stressful and how challenging it is for families when school anxiety gets out of hand, I've put together a program so you'll know exactly how to help your child or teen if they're experiencing school-related anxiety. I've designed it especially for parents of anxious children who are starting school or kinder for the first time, who are returning to school after the school holidays and feeling anxious about that, or who are transitioning to a new school. The program runs over 4 weeks. It is an online program where I will spend time with you on 4 occasions live via Zoom so that I can teach you how to understand school-related anxiety, what to look out for, what to do, and how to support your anxious child, and the very important role that we play as parents in the lives of our children when they are experiencing school anxiety. I can't wait to start working with you and to have the opportunity to really make a difference for you so that school-related anxiety in your family doesn't become more of a problem and more of a challenging issue for you to sort through. If you'd like to join me for my live online program, well, Hello School Anxiety, head to my website, drjodyrichandson.com.au. We'll be starting in January 2024 so I can guide you through to the start of the school year in 2024. Please head to my website and click through to learn more about the School Anxiety Program. There's a frequently asked questions section, so all of your questions can be answered. I'm really looking forward to being able to support you and your family with school anxiety. So please be sure to check out the program via my website and share it with your school or with anyone else who you know will benefit from understanding school anxiety and learning how to support a child who's struggling. So that's all from me for this week's episode. I know that school refusal is a really complex issue. School anxiety can be a precursor, and the sooner we identify what's happening and know what to do about it, the better placed we are to really ensure that our children are heading to school each and every day, reducing their anxiety around school and making the mornings peaceful again. Thank you again for your time. It is always such a joy to be with you. I really appreciate your time listening to the podcast and cannot wait to be back with you with another wonderful guest next week. Take care and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jody Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodyrichandson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.